Hi, welcome to Punchline Talks. My name is Mark Owen, and each week I invite a panel of business experts to review the morning newspapers, find out what's happened in their own individual business and their own individual business sectors, and finally, what's caught their eye in this week's Punchline. But before I start, I'd just like to thank our fantastic sponsors, Hazelwood's Accountants and Business Advisors, and we couldn't do the show without them. Okay, let's meet the panel today. We've got Huw Lewis MBE. He's the Managing Director of Black Mountain Branded Clothing based in Ross-on-Wye. He's got 15 staff and a turnover of £1 million. And we'll find out all about his business and how he got started. And also, hopefully, what he got his MBE for as well. We got Dr. Matthew Andrews. He's Chief Operating Officer for the University of Gloucestershire. And we're going to find out all about what is happening with Debenhams, obviously being turned into the city campus. So I'm hoping that Matthew will give us an update on that. We've got Talitha Nelson. She's the CEO of Gloucestershire Community Foundation. It's a charity that basically helps around 3,000 other charities throughout the county, and she does amazing work behind the scenes. And finally, last not least, ex-BBC presenter Serena Gray, podcasting guru, and she's just changed the name of their business to MFY Podcasts, and we'll find out all about that. Okay, thanks ever so much for joining us today. The panel, let's just have a quick look at the papers, courtesy of the BBC. So we'll just share the screen. Okay, the Eye. Number 10, anxiety grows as angry Tories question Sunak authority. The Guardian, Tories urge to give back further 5 million from Hester. The Daily Mail, Russia attacked Shap's RAF jet by jamming GPS. The Financial Times, working hours for Commons hit record low under Sunak. The Daily Express, victory, Esther wins Commons debate on right to die. The Times, 20,000 a month off work with poor mental health. The Daily Telegraph, fears for patients in NHS net zero drive. The Mirror, cop sued over shot sergeant. The Metro staff working from home caused air misery for millions. We all remember that. And the Daily Star, bear me up, Scotty. I just love the Daily Star. Apparently they found some enzyme or something floating around in space. Who knows with the Daily Star? But anyway, I didn't buy it today. Serena, let's start with you today.
Hi. Well, yes. As a former BBC radio reporter, I'm a bit hardcore when it comes to the news. So I've gone really for headline stuff. So the Frank Hester headline in the Guardian, the guy who donated so much money to the Tory party after having said some very unfortunate things about Diane Abbott. The story has got legs. My goodness, this is going and going. And, you might have thought it would have fizzled out a couple of days ago, but it's been making headlines all week, and the Guardian and the Eye are not letting go of it. I think what we can take away from this is that if you have a royal honour, which one of us today on this show does, Huw, who has an MBE, and Frank Hester has an OBE, I think if you've got a royal honour, you actually do have to live up to slightly higher standards. And, you cannot get away with making comments like that in public without a huge public furore. So will the Tory party give back apparently £15 million now that Frank Hester has given them? No, because they probably already spent it, so that's not going to happen. And I do think, though, we should accept that the guy has apologised, and, we should accept that. But where we go from here is up to anybody. Yeah, what are you going to say, Mark?
Just to say to me, it's one of those stories that, obviously being in the media, where once they've got hold of you, it's like a dog, got your ankle basically, and they're chewing on the bone and they're trying to get as much out of it as possible. And also it highlights that they haven't got any other news stories going on. It's quite simple as that, really. Even though there's massive stuff going.
And I think it also highlights the weakness of the government at the moment, that this, one after another, an avalanche of bad news stories. And, they're just not going to live this one down, I don't think. I know my 3 minutes are probably running out really quickly here. So I did want, though, to touch on the other story that Russia had attacked Shap's RAF jet by jamming his GPS signal. and that they had done this for 30 minutes, which is quite something actually, isn't it? Because it's one thing just to say, oh, we're here, we're watching you. So we're just going to jam your signal for a few minutes just to let you know that we can. But to do it for 30 minutes is really something else, in a whole different category. And gosh, I do hope that we're not heading towards the Third World War, but these kind of things are really worrying when they take those kind of steps. And the final story, I think, maybe because I'm sure my 3 minutes is running out, Esther winning the Commons debate on the right to die. I feel quite strongly about this. I think that we should, as individuals, have the right to decide how to end our lives. And I have seen some awful instances where people final weeks have been very unpleasant. And I think that it's time that we rethought how we approach this. And so I'm pleased that Esther Rantzen has managed to, with all her sort of campaigning prowess and success, has managed to get the Commons at least to debate it, even if a law change is a way down the line.
And who would have thought it, watching Esther in the 1970s? All the fantastic programs and the campaigning that she did, that she would end up campaigning for something like this herself. It's remarkable, isn't it? And really, really sad. I'm going to go over to you, Huw, very quickly, because Huw, obviously being an ex-military man like myself, that's pretty damn serious. Russia jamming a plane like that for 30 minutes.
Well, it's really interesting as well that over the last few years, the number of incursions from Russia to our sovereign state has increased significantly, more so than ever any of the peaks in the Cold War. So you're right, it really is serious. They're probing all the time, challenging, pushing. And the fact that they've keep on increasing their spending year on year, I think is up to 40% now of their GDP, whereas if you compare that with Britain, or most of the Western world, around about 2%, is a significant escalation.
It's like you said, 40% increase. I'm going to go over to you then, Huw. What stories you picked out, please?
Well, the big news for me is it's the election time in Russia, where Putin is pretty well guaranteed to win this election. And what does that mean to the rest of us? Well, so far, I think we've been pretty poor in predicting anything that's happening with Russia. When Russia invaded Ukraine, I think all the experts predicted that Ukraine would fold over in 3 days. And that hasn't happened. And then the predictions that Ukraine would eventually be able to push Russia out, that still hasn't happened with the spring offensive last year. A little bit concerning that the West is getting tired of supporting Ukraine and seeing what's going to happen there. But what will happen now with Putin winning this election, which is guaranteed, will that give him new confidence? And what can the West do about him and the gangster state that he has?
Yeah, it's really worrying, isn't it? As Serena said as well. Okay, thanks ever so much for that. Talitha, can I go over to you, please? What have you picked out for us?
Yeah, just to pick up on the Diane Abbott story, I think there's a lot more to it and why the press is going for it. I mean, in the Commons, she tried, I think, 47 times to say something about the discussion that was about her, and she wasn't allowed to. So I think there's a huge piece around how women are treated. She also was very inappropriate and also lost her position on the Labour Party and now is independent because she also said things that weren't appropriate and she paid the price. What I'm seeing is others don't pay the same price. So there's a real piece here around how women are treated and how men are treated. So I think there's a really interesting piece that actually I wouldn't want it to fizzle out. It's a real debate about how women are treated. So
I just want to add to that, mind you, that Hester is not an MP. So he's not in the House like Abbott.
And influence is influence, and it's influencing the people of the country, and she paid for it. And I'm not seeing the same pay for other people in influence. And I think that's what the debate is around gender balance and the patriarchy. Anyway, let's continue. I am going on to something around mental health, because do you know what? With all of this going on, you know, how a country functions and how a country is successful is around the mental health of our people. And, you know, it affects all sectors. If we have an unhappy country, then we're not going to be making the money. And if we're not making the money, then we have more sections of society in poverty and the breakdown of society. And actually, this is a massive piece around how the news deals with issues and what they cling on to, and how the country feels when we're reading stuff. So picking up quickly on the William and Kate piece around Kate having put a photograph, a simple photograph out she happened to touch up. We all know most photographs in the news and in the media are touched up. How she possibly has been vilified for this is absolutely insane. The treatment of somebody that's clearly gone through a difficult time, whether it's surgery or whatever speculation, has had this absolutely bullying, horrific treatment over a simple photograph, which leads me on to a piece in the news around the general population and the health of our society, which is very worrying. Because actually 20,000 people are off work in the UK every month for mental health issues. And that is hugely damaging to society. So the piece around 2 million are now on benefits, and sort of 70% is around mental health. Now, this is not good for business, it's not good for the health of our country. And what are we doing to put preventative measures in place around supporting people and supporting the mental health? And it's indiscriminate of whether people are wealthy or not. So to me, our society, politics has a huge play in the health of our society. So does the news. And we are one of the most unhappy countries in Europe. So I would say we all have a part to play to call out things that are negative and to really do our bit to help society function in a positive way. So for me, it's around mental health and the decline and the negativity of this country, perpetuated particularly by probably politics and the news.
Okay, hope you're not talking about us.
Yeah.
No, Mark,
Try and find lots of...
Why am I on here? It's because I love you.
It's a nice way to finish, isn't it? Okay, right. Okay, you could stay. Right, Matthew. Always good. Really nice to see you, Matthew. Thanks ever so much for coming on the show. What have you picked out for us, please, sir?
Yeah, and good morning, Mark. It's a pleasure to be here. So a few things that jumped out at me as I flipped through the pages this morning. In the Times on page 11, it's a fairly small story, but it's talking about further speculation about when the election will be held this year. Rishi Sunak has ruled out a May election now. And it just strikes me how destabilising this part of the political debate is, that we just don't know when a parliamentary term is going to end. Clearly, we did have fixed-term parliaments for a short period. And I think an incumbent political party thinks it gives advantage to them on being able to pick the date that they go to the polls. But it just creates this instability. Certainly, there's a number of conversations we're having and are now trying to think through, well, when can we do certain things? Might it be a period of purdah? We don't know. And I'm not actually sure it really does provide benefit to an incumbent political party, because now it's just got this issues of, well, if Rishi Sunak does call the election, has he done it right? Or if he doesn't do it, is that just because he's weak and he's waiting? And it just seems to me a whole unnecessary part of political speculation that we could do away with.
Can I just add that? Sorry, can I just add that? The trouble with you, if you have a fixed-term parliament, you all know it's coming to the end. So basically, the leader becomes quite powerless leading up to it. They kind of lose the sort of momentum. I mean, we've never had a parliament like this, having 5 prime ministers in 10 minutes, whatever it's been. So yeah, it's unusual.
I would take that, though, over the uncertainty of just when is it going to be. There's huge periods of time where you're entirely... you're just not clear whether you can move things forward or not. Will it happen or not? And that seems to me worse than that period when somebody might go through a stage of weakness. But ultimately, if they're doing a good job and they're in a strong position, that weakness shouldn't apply. I mean, that seems to me a bit of a non-argument if they're doing the job in the first place. The other thing that really struck me from the Times, the Times often have good pictures on the front cover, is the wonderful shot of the Concorde that's been renovated in New York at the moment, just going back to its museum home. And it struck me that I was reading that, and in the Sun, the other paper I was flicking through this morning, that there's a story about eco-mad NHS bosses trialing electric taxis, and just how, as a country in the past few decades, we've really changed our view about progress. So the Concorde, when it was introduced, sort of at an era, the white heat of technology with Harold Wilson, we had sort of great optimism about science and progress. And it was a great symbol of Anglo-French cooperation. But we now seem to be in a place where we've moved away from these sort of big, ambitious national projects to really criticising so much advanced technology, being fearful of it, And where we do have big projects, dare I go towards HS2, we decry them, we criticize them, and then they become failures. Perhaps we predict them to be so. So I'm thinking, in another 60 years' time or so, what would be the big advances that we would stick on the front page and feel really proud of? Where are those going to be? And I think we need to change our attitude towards some of these technological developments. Third thing, if I can still go on to
well, you kind of, I think you run out of time.
I've run out of time. Well, I won't talk about that one then.
So interesting.
Thank you ever so much. Right, I'm going to go over to Serena. Serena, thanks ever so much for joining us. You've been on my show quite a few times over the years, and you're a bit of a podcast guru. How many podcasts have you done? And you're kind of hanging up your hat. You changed the name of your company. It was very confusing for me this morning.
I'm so sorry, Mark. Well, the thing is this, I've spent the last few years sort of introducing the concept of small podcasting to small businesses and in Gloucestershire. And that's been great fun. And I continue to service clients. But I have got to a stage where I'm about to celebrate a particular birthday, and I want to have a bit more time to myself. So what I'm going to, because I'm so overloaded with work, I've decided to sort of scale back a little bit on the podcasting and continue to do a lot of my confidential copywriting, which I've also been doing for a while. So I'm continuing as a podcast producer, but I'm just not pushing myself out there with such vigor as I used to. Can
I ask you about the podcasting sort of side of things? Because obviously,
Yeah.
the pandemic, it really, really took off, and everyone seems to have a podcast. We talked about it as well. Is it still a growth market? Are lots of people still doing it? Are you finding,
Yeah, the problem for me during the pandemic was that people were still outside of London. People were still really discovering the concept and what it actually meant for them in terms of their businesses, and that involved me in a lot of evangelizing. And then since then, things have really boomed, and lots of sort of legal companies, financial setups, charities and so forth have launched podcasts, and I've helped many of them to get them off the ground, and that's been great fun. And what it is, I think, is that people have learned that their target audience might not just access information via their screens or the written word, but appreciate the chance to be able to listen rather than read. And so this is just another tool to the marketing box that people are now aware that they can add. They don't need to be a huge broadcasting corporation with endless microphones. It's pretty easy to do it with the equipment that's available on the market, and it's not so expensive. So I think people are coming around to the understanding that they're definitely coming around to the understanding that you can produce a podcast, you can produce audio material, and it gets through to the right people.
Okay, well, thanks ever so much for that, and I wish you very, very all the best for your new endeavours. I can't believe you told us how old you were.
Only you, not everybody.
Only me. I'm not going to repeat it. Anyway, thanks ever so much. Huw, I'm going to go over to you. Huw, thanks ever so much for joining the show today. Can you tell us, please, about Black Mountain? How long has it been trading, and more about it, please?
Yeah, absolute pleasure. Yeah. So basically, I started Black Mountain back in 2015. Another company called MPCT, Motivational Preparation for College for Training, and has an actual college in Gloucester. And what I found was I couldn't find anybody that would produce uniform for the students and the staff. We had some 2,000 students and 200 staff quickly and efficiently. So we started our own company up in the Black Mountains. And from that sort of acorn small start, we've grown the business from one client to over 500 customers now. And the idea is that we take away all the administration, all the pain of clothing your staff and your uniform staff with uniform, and it becomes our problem rather than the company's problem. So basically they can focus on their main effort, and allows us to focus on making sure that they're dressed effectively and properly.
Because lots of people don't know, obviously we're a marketing agency, so we go to people like yours to help us with this type of thing. But I'll be honest with you, there are the variety now is so great, isn't it? From polos to tees to you know, all different types of fleeces. How do you take people through that sort of, you know, walk it through with them?
Yeah, good question. The it's by getting to know the client and getting to know what's important to them. And we're a little bit obsessive and about making sure that we get the right type of clothing for the individuals. We work with steelworks, for example, and they have very specific requirements for working in that quite hazardous industry. But other industries as well, such that use lots of chemicals, we'll be able to provide the PPE required for them. So getting to know the customer, and the whole idea is it's a long-term relationship rather than a fast fashion in and out. All the manufacturing, all the printing and the embroidery is done in-house by a really talented team of staff that I have in Ross. So we're able to fulfill that promise. So if we give a deadline or give a target date that we're going to provide the uniform for the company, then we always hit that one way or another.
Okay, so I didn't realise you actually print them there as well, because other people send it out, don't they?
That's the majority of the industry, yeah. So we've got the machinery, the high-tech machinery for printing, and embroidery as well. And it's still a manufacturing process. So I love the fact that we're still manufacturing in the UK, and the staff are really quite talented. At the end of the day, it comes down to a really keen eye and the repetition and being able to do that job again and again on a daily basis. Yeah.
Well, okay. Thanks ever so much for that. Okay. We're going to go over to you, Talitha. Thanks ever so much for joining us again. Thanks for that, Huw.
Thank you.
Great, yes. We've had quite a week, really, of celebrations. We launched a major piece of research into county. It was a call to action for all sectors. The research was about strengthening communities. We're a place-based funder. Gloucestershire is the place we live, work, and hopefully enjoy living. But for a third of our children in the county, they live in poverty. If anyone doesn't know that, is pretty shocked to hear 41,000 children in our wealthy, beautiful, wonderful county are living in poverty. So our job is absolutely to shine a light on the deprivation in our county and give people an opportunity to understand how they can give back. If they've done really well in the county and they've done very well out of Gloucestershire, then maybe they can think about giving something back if they're fortunate enough to be in that position. So we launched major research. It was very well received. And then we went on to yesterday publicly announce nationally, it's a name and shame essentially for trusts and foundations. Many were very unhappy yesterday. You get scored from an A to a D. 100 charities, which are foundations and trusts, you can't opt out. You are scored, and it's brutal. And you're scored on 3 elements, and that is diversity, transparency, and accountability. And the FPR rating, which is the foundation practice, is trying to put some pressure on what is a very traditional sector to start modernising. And we have done huge amounts of work in the 4 years we've been developing Gloucestershire Community Foundation, which has been here for over 30 years. And just because we live in Gloucestershire doesn't mean we can't be diverse. And it's absolutely wonderful for a small organisation like us. We scored an A. Now an A, there was 11 out of 100 scoring an A, and we were one of them. And so we're incredibly proud, because out of the 3 years of assessing 300 organisations, including some very significant named organisations, only 20 have scored an A. So we have put Gloucestershire on the map, which is brilliant.
Woo!
We've had, yes. So so a big celebration for Gloucestershire.
Well, well done, you. The fantastic job you're doing there as well. Okay, let's go to you, Matthew. Thanks for joining the show today.
Thank you. Good to have you on.
Okay, well, look,
it's far too early. The coffee hasn't kicked in.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. I thought it was my show. I thought it was my show.
I know, it's a takeover.
It is a takeover.
What we are, though, is trying to have a big impact, be it on this session here or in the city of Gloucester. I'll use that as a segue. So the big news for us this week is that we have launched some new information, some new images around the development of the former Debenhams department store in Gloucester. We're hugely excited by what we're doing there. So the announcement has been these new images. You've got them on the screen there. And it's just shaping up really well. It's been a complex build. I think you take an old building in the centre of a fantastically historical city like Gloucester, and you find issues as you go along. It's going really well. By the end of the year, we will have students starting to use it and the public starting to use it. We're very keen for this to be a permeable building, one which members of the public can come into. We've been looking at how we really make this a vibrant heart for the university and for the city. So we've been considering the subject mix. So we've got the core areas around our Arts, Health and Wellbeing Centre, working with the Integrated Care Board, the NHS relationships there. We're also going to be bringing in education. We're going to be bringing in psychology. We're going to be bringing some of these disciplines in there, which are going to base eventually up to about 4,000 students in the heart of Gloucester. And for me, this is a really exciting thing that we're doing as a university, but it's also, for me, a really exciting story about what universities can do, because I'm hugely passionate about the work of higher education. And it's about how we transform lives, how we transform communities. And this is a fantastic example of the way in which higher education can have that powerful transformative effect on communities, not just the individuals who come in to study with us, but the people who will come in, general public, into that Arts, Health and Wellbeing Centre, or maybe just in to use the cafe, and just to see the wonderful environment we're so excited to be opening later this year.
And let's touch on the build, if you don't mind, because it has been a difficult build. You've taken an old building, it's 4 buildings within a building, if I've got that right.
Yeah, at least.
There's been bodies in the basement, Roman remains, and so you've had to spend some time doing that, as you would. There's been asbestos. I mean, it's been a bit of a job and a half, isn't it? Really. Are you coming to the end of the difficult side of things now?
Absolutely. You know, there have been all sorts as we've gone through this project, and it's part and parcel of being in such an historic, wonderful city like Gloucester. You know, you scratch beneath the surface, and you've got centuries of history there, and we found some of that as we've gone through the build. I think often with builds, you have these difficulties as you go along the way. The challenges that you need to overcome, but it's the end product. And when we get in there, we know this building is going to be fantastic. The facilities are shaping up, really brilliantly. We've had good engagement from across the university community and beyond to shape what we're building here. And I think when it's open, you don't think about the issues of construction. You think about the facilities that you've got. And for generations to come, I think this is going to have such a significant impact on the life of the wonderful city of Gloucester.
I tell you what, Matthew, I think it's going to be an absolute game changer. Forget the forum, which obviously is important, but this is going to have 4,000, 5,000 students running around the city, your staff as well, let alone the uplift, the buildings changed dramatically. It's going to be, and the investment that is pouring into the city itself is absolutely huge. So, congratulations on the great work you guys are doing there. And hopefully, I know you're going to keep us informed along the way as well. So thanks for telling us all about that. Okay, we're kind of running out of time, unfortunately. So we're going to have to do the pick of the punchlines right now. I'm going to start with you, Huw. What have you picked out from this week's punchline, please? One story, got a minute each.
Okay, got you. Basically, I was very interested to see that piece that you had with Rishi Sunak and visiting, obviously, the Gloucester ground with the game going on this evening. And I want to ask you really a question. How was it? How was it meeting the Prime Minister and the fact that he was actually on our home turf?
Well, that's very kind. I was quite nervous. I have met 3 other Prime Ministers, if you want to know the truth. What surprised me was the way that the media is treated, if you want to know the truth. There's so many rules you're not allowed to do. You're not allowed to take films, you're not allowed to take pictures, you're corralled into one room, you're not allowed out and about anywhere, and then you're taken into one side, and then we're only given one question each. Well, if all of you were only given one question, what would be your question? Now you can record it, but other than that, so it's very, very restrictive. And the rest of the stuff going around the ground, you have no idea what else is going on. So thankfully, I've got on very well with some of the reporters, and I could pick that up as we went along. Meeting Rishi himself was a real honour. He's at the end of the day, he's a Prime Minister. He's very slick. He knows his stuff. My goodness, he's extremely slim. And you know, I think, and he came across as a really nice guy, very intelligent. We've basically, to me, we've got an accountant running the business, running the country. That's how I see him, and I think that's what we need. Well, yeah. So in this financial times, so no, thank you. It was very enlightening and really enjoyable. And I'd just like to make the point that Richard Graham really gave a good was a great ambassador for the city. He really did, you know, played his part fantastically well, and he has done over the years. So thanks for that. Right, let's go over to you, Talitha. What have you picked out from this week's Punchline?
Well, I was at an event at John Lewis in Cheltenham the other day, and we heard about their performance, and I was so encouraged by the fact that they're performing year on year. And so the piece you picked up on Punchline, having come from the business and retail sector, I've done my time in retail, I've built brands, I've been there, done that. I know how tough it is. When I had a team of 300 staff, I know how tough it is to train, develop and deliver results. So when I see what John Lewis are doing, I absolutely know the hard work that goes into this. And the fact that they've come back with a slight profit, which is brilliant year on year, is about the ethics. They have been partner owned. They have had ethics for over 100 years. I think it's 150 years now. It's about the triple bottom line, people, planet, profit. You know, it will absolutely win out. The greedy people out there, you know, will get some highs, but actually the stayers are all about looking after their people. So I'm absolutely thrilled to see positivity on the high street and John Lewis leading that.
Okay, thank you very much, Talitha. I'm going to go back over to you, Matthew, and we'll wrap up with Serena. We've got a minute, sir. What's the pick of the Punchline?
Well, there's a great story about significant developments in Gloucester, but I've maybe done that one already. What the other investment story, though, I really liked was this £10 billion rail investment. Proposals coming through later this year. I think thinking about how we use transport differently to connect up the region in an area where I think there is so much potential and better transport options could really help unlock that. Such an important thing to be doing. So really interested to read that story.
Okay, we picked that story up obviously from the event at your place the other day, actually.
Indeed.
Okay, Serena, what have you picked out for the Punchline?
Well, Mark, like you, I was very taken with your appointment with the Prime Minister, and I'm glad Huw asked you to talk about that. But a story that also that caught my eye was that the Southwest is the startup business hotspot now for over 50s entrepreneurs. And I noticed that Startup Loans, which is part of the British Business Bank, has delivered more than £140 million of loans to UK entrepreneurs. That's across the country, aged 50 plus, since its inception in 2012. But I notice that there's no breakdown of male to female in this story. So the thing is, we all know that women are great entrepreneurs and that they bring in a lot of money to the economy with their entrepreneurial activities, but they find it far more difficult than men to get support. So I'd love to know, I would have loved to have known in the story what the breakdown was, male, female. But it's still possible. Sorry, what were you going to say, Mark?
No, we're kind of running out of time, but I will go back and we'll ask them. We'll find out if they've got those stats. I'm sure they have. Yeah,
that'd be good. Okay.
Anyway, my pick of the stories for this week has to be actually the wrap up of G First LEP. It was sad, but I felt a fitting celebration of their success over the years. I think they've been a tremendous asset to the county, and it's sad to see them go. Anyway, and I'm very sad to say that is the end of today's show. I'd just like to thank our fantastic panel. Thank you ever so much for joining Punchline Talk today. Wonderful sponsors, Hazelwood's Accountants and Business Advisors. And last not least, the audience, all of you for watching. If you like the show, please like, share and subscribe. And hopefully we'll see you again next week. Remember, it's all in the Punchline. Bye.